Gold doesn't burn, it melts. And to melt gold, you need temperatures that reach 1,064 degrees Celsius, hotter than most natural fires, hotter than what ancient warfare is even supposed to achieve. Now imagine this, a massive sacred structure, walls lined with gold, ceilings reflecting light like mirrors. And then, suddenly, that gold starts to drip. Not crack, not fall, but melt, flowing like liquid sunlight through stone cracks, disappearing into the earth itself. This isn't fantasy. This isn't mythology. This is what may have happened in 586 BC when the Babylonian Empire destroyed Solomon's temple in Jerusalem. But here's the part most people never question. Was this just destruction, or was it something far more calculated? Because when you connect the dots, the siege, the delay, the fire, the missing artifacts, it starts to look less like chaos and more like a designed operation. An operation to not just destroy a city, but to extract its wealth at a level no one expected. And by the end of this video, you're going to see this event in a completely different way. Because this isn't just history. This is ancient engineering, psychological warfare, and a mystery that still hasn't been solved. To understand what happened, we need to understand what was at stake. Solomon's temple wasn't just a religious building. It was something far more valuable. It was a concentration of wealth built directly into architecture. Ancient descriptions tell us that inside the temple, walls were overlaid with gold, ceilings were covered in gold, floors reflected light from gold surfaces, sacred objects were crafted entirely from precious metals. Even everyday ritual items, bowls, lamps, tools were made from gold or silver. This wasn't decoration. This was stored value embedded into structure. Now think about it like this. If you were an ancient empire and you saw a building containing that much wealth, you wouldn't see a temple, you would see a target. Some estimates claim thousands of tons of gold were used. Even if those numbers are debated, the conclusion is the same. This was likely one of the richest structures ever built in the ancient world. But here's the problem. This wealth wasn't easy to take. It wasn't stacked in coins. It wasn't sitting in vaults. It was bonded to wood and stone, thin sheets of gold hammered onto cedar beams, integrated into the building itself. So if you're the Babylonians, you face a challenge. How do you turn immovable wealth into transportable wealth? You can't just peel it off. You can't carry the building. You can't spend years extracting it. So you need a different approach. You don't remove it, you transform it. The fall of Jerusalem didn't begin with fire. It began with patience. In 588 BC, the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar II surrounded the city. But instead of launching an immediate attack, he did something far more effective. He sealed it. The Babylonians built a second wall around Jerusalem. This strategy is called circumvallation, and it changes everything. Because now, no one gets in, no one gets out. No food, no water, no reinforcements. The city becomes a trapped system, and time becomes the weapon. At first, life continues normally, but slowly, supplies begin to run out. Food becomes scarce, then rare, then non-existent. People begin rationing, then starving. Animals are eaten, then anything remotely edible is consumed. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, months into over a year. Inside the city, the human body begins to break down. Muscles weaken, energy disappears, the immune system collapses. Historical accounts describe people reduced to skin and bone, faces hollow, eyes sunken, bodies barely able to stand. And eventually, survival instincts take over, the kind of desperation that history rarely describes openly. Meanwhile, outside the walls, the Babylonians are strong. They eat well. They build fires every night. they laugh, they wait. This contrast is psychological warfare. The people inside the city can see the difference. They can see what they've lost: strength, control, hope. The Babylonians aren't just starving Jerusalem, they are breaking its will to resist. Because when a population is weak enough, you don't need to fight them, you just walk in. After nearly 18 months, the breaking point arrives. The northern wall collapses. Now this is where you expect chaos, a violent invasion, fire, screaming, immediate destruction. But that's not what happens. Instead, there's a pause. Days go by, then weeks. Why? Because the Babylonians don't need to rush. The city is already defeated. The defenders are too weak to fight. So when the Babylonians finally enter, they don't encounter resistance. They encounter silence. And then something even more unexpected begins. Not destruction, not chaos, but organization. A Babylonian official arrives, but he doesn't act like a soldier. He acts like an inspector. He walks through the temple, carefully, systematically, and he begins recording everything. Gold vessels, silver items, bronze structures, secret tools. Nothing is ignored. Nothing is rushed. This is not looting. This is inventory control. Massive bronze pillars, too heavy to move, so they're broken into pieces. Portable gold items, collected. Silver, taken. Everything that can be easily transported is removed first. And then we reach the most important detail in the entire story. The gold on the walls is left behind. Not because it's worthless, but because it's inconvenient. It's bonded to wood, difficult to remove, time-consuming. And the Babylonians don't want to waste time. So instead of removing it, they decide to change it. Now we enter the most intense part of this story, because what happens next isn't random, it's strategic. Solomon's temple was built using Lebanese cedar. This is critical, because cedar wood is dense, resin-rich, highly flammable. In modern terms, it's high-energy fuel. Now combine that with the temple's structure: enclosed interior spaces, thick wooden surfaces, limited ventilation, gold layered over combustible material. This creates the perfect environment for a thermal reaction system. When fire is introduced, hot air rises, cool air rushes in, oxygen feeds the flames. This creates the chimney effect, and suddenly the building begins to amplify its own destruction. The temperature rises rapidly. But here's where it gets even more intense. Ancient sources suggest the Babylonians may have used naphtha, a primitive petroleum, highly flammable, sticky, almost impossible to extinguish once ignited. If spread across wooden surfaces, it dramatically increases burn intensity. Now imagine this scenario: a sealed structure filled with resin-rich cedar, coated with flammable liquid, ignited from multiple points. This is no longer a fire. This is an engineered inferno. Temperatures rise beyond normal limits, approaching the threshold required to melt gold. At first, the fire behaves normally. Wood burns, smoke rises, flames spread. But then something changes. The gold begins to react. It softens, it loses structure, and then it melts. Slowly, then faster. Sheets of gold begin to detach from the walls. They drip, then flow. Liquid gold runs downward, through cracks, between stones, into the foundation. Think about what just happened. The gold is no longer attached. It's no longer part of the building. It has been transformed into recoverable material. This is the turning point, because now The Babylonians don't need to strip the structure. They just need to collect what remains. After the fire burns out, the operation isn't over. It's just beginning. The Babylonians return, but they're not looting randomly. They're working with precision. They begin dismantling the structure, stone by stone, carefully. Why? Because the gold didn't disappear. It flowed downward, into the cracks, into the base, into the ground beneath the temple. This is no longer destruction. This is mining. The temple is being processed like a resource site. Every stone removed is another chance to recover gold. Every layer broken is another layer of wealth revealed. This is the part most people miss. The fire wasn't the end. It was the method. Everything so far follows logic. The siege, the starvation, the audit, the fire, the extraction. But then we hit a gap. The Babylonians recorded everything meticulously, but one object is missing. Not forgotten, not vaguely described, completely absent. The most sacred object in the temple, the Ark of the Covenant. No record of it being taken, no record of it being destroyed, no mention at all. And that raises a question that has lasted thousands of years. Where did it go? There are theories. Some believe it was hidden before the siege ended, possibly beneath the temple. Others believe priests removed it in secret. And some ancient writings suggest something even more unusual, that whatever presence was associated with the ark left before the destruction began. Whatever the truth is, the Babylonians, who recorded everything, never listed it. And that silence is one of the greatest mysteries in history. As the city collapses, the king attempts to escape, under darkness, through a hidden path. But he is captured. And what happens next is not just punishment. It is designed trauma. His sons are executed in front of him, and then he is blinded. The last thing he ever sees is the end of his bloodline, his future erased. And then he is taken away, alive, but broken. The Babylonians succeed. The temple is gone. The gold is taken. The city is destroyed. Everything is finished. But history has a twist. About 50 years later, the Babylonian Empire falls, and something unexpected happens. The same vessels taken from the temple are returned back to Jerusalem. Think about that. The building was destroyed, but the objects survived, preserved, stored, almost as if they were waiting. So what does this story really tell us? That even the most valuable structure in the world can be erased. That gold, the symbol of permanence, can be melted. That power, no matter how strong, can fall. But it also tells us something deeper, that not everything is physical. Because while the building was destroyed, the story survived, the memory survived, the mystery survived. And maybe that was the one thing the Babylonians couldn't take. So now I'll leave you with this. If everything you build can be burned, melted, taken, then what are you building that can't? And one final question, the one history still hasn't answered. Where did the ark go? Hidden? Stolen? Or something else entirely? Tell me what you think, because this story is far from over.